Welcome back, Year 5. In today's reading lesson, we'll be moving on to Chapter 8 of Fantastic Mr. Fox. We're still focusing on vocabulary, but today we're explaining the impact of certain words and phrases in a text. So that means we'll be looking closely at the words the author chose to use and thinking about why they chose those words and not some other words. So let's look at an example. In this passage, we see some of the text is in red. That's the part that we're going to focus on and think about why the author chose to use those specific words. It says, as she waited for the judges to announce the results of the competition, Stephanie bit her nails down to raw nubs. Now, immediately when I hear raw nubs, I think, ouch! Raw means it would be very sore. Like, have you ever had a piece of your skin peel away and then it's raw underneath? And a nub means that it's down to a stump. So that means she bit her nails down to the point where underneath the skin was all red. So that just kind of makes you go, ugh. And that's what the author wanted. They want you to realize that she was so nervous that she was biting her nails so hard that she didn't even realize that they were raw nubs. So that choice of words is showing us that Stephanie was extremely nervous. All right, let's try another one. Example 2. In this one, though, we're going to look at how a combination of words and phrases gets a certain idea across. So we're looking at the impression given by a combination of phrases. This passage says, on his way to school, Marcus always had to pass the bakery, the donut shop, and then a line of dumpsters. As soon as he would reach the bakery, he would inhale deeply and fill his lungs. Then he'd take one more deep breath as he passed the donut shop. And then he would hold on for dear life until he reached school. So in red, we're seeing inhale deeply, fill his lungs, and then hold on for dear life. Well, when you inhale deeply, you imagine somebody is quite relaxed, right? And if you're filling your lungs, that must mean it's good. It's a nice, fresh breath of air. And then after that, it says, hold on for dear life. That's a more negative thing. So these phrases are giving us the impression that around the bakery and the donut shop smelled really good because he would inhale deeply and fill his lungs with the air. But then we know from earlier in the passage that after the bakery and the donut shop comes the dumpsters. So if he's holding on for dear life after he's filled his lungs, we can imagine that he's holding his breath so that he doesn't have to breathe around the dumpsters. This tells us, without actually saying it clearly, that the dumpsters smell horrible. So now we're going to read Chapter 8 of Fantastic Mr. Fox. It's called The Foxes Begin to Starve. This is a very short chapter, it's only 3 pages long, but it has a couple great opportunities for thinking about why the author chose certain words. So look out for those highlighted words. That evening, 3 tents were put up in the crater on the hill. One for Bogus, one for Boonce, and one for Bean. The tents surrounded Mr. Fox's hole, and the 3 farmers sat outside their tents eating their supper. Bogus had 3 boiled chickens smothered in dumplings, Boonce had 6 donuts filled with disgusting goose liver paste, and Bean had 2 gallons of cider. All 3 of them kept their guns beside them. Bogus picked up a steaming chicken and held it close to the fox's hole. "Can you smell this, Mr. Fox?" he shouted. "Lovely, tender chicken. Why don't you come up and get it?" The rich scent of chicken wafted down the tunnel to where the foxes were crouching. "Oh, Dad," said one of the small foxes, "couldn't we just sneak up and snatch it out of his hand?" "Don't you dare," said Mrs. Fox. "That's just what they want you to do." "But we're so hungry," they cried. "How long will it be till we get something to eat?" Their mother didn't answer them, nor did their father. There was no answer to give. As darkness fell, Boonce and Bean switched on the powerful headlamps of the 2 tractors and shone them onto the hole. "Now," said Bean, "we'll take it in turn to keep watch. 1 watches while 2 sleep, and so on all through the night." Bogus said, "What if the fox digs a hole right through the hill and comes out on the other side? You didn't think of that one, did you?" "Of course I did," said Bean, pretending he had. "Go on then, tell us the answer," said Bogus. Bean picked something small and black out of his ear and flicked it away. "How many men have you got working on your farm?" he asked. 35, Bogus said. "I've got 36, Boone said. "And I've got 37, Bean said. "That makes 108 men altogether. We must order them to surround the hill. Each man will have a gun and a flashlight. There will be no escape then for Mr. Fox. So the order went down to the farms, and that night 108 men formed a tight ring around the bottom of the hill. They were armed with sticks and guns and hatchets and pistols and all sorts of other horrible weapons. This made it quite impossible for a fox, or indeed for any other animal, to escape from the hill. The next day, the watching and waiting went on. Bogus and Boots and Bean sat upon small stools staring at the fox's hole. They didn't talk much. They just sat there with their guns on their laps. Every so often, Mr. Fox would creep a little closer towards the mouth of the tunnel and take a sniff. Then he would creep back again and say, "They're still here." "Are you quite sure?" Mrs. Fox would ask. "Positive," said Mr. Fox. "I can smell that man Bean a mile away. He stinks." So that's the end of chapter 8. I want you to leave a comment down below about how you think the foxes are feeling and what you think might happen next. Now it's time for your independent task. So I've selected 3 small passages from the text, and I've highlighted parts of them in red so that you can clearly see them. I want you to think about what effect those words have. The task says, by using the red words, what impression does the author give? Write your response in complete sentences. So, number 1, the rich scent of chicken wafted down the tunnel to where the foxes were crouching. What impression does Roald Dahl give by saying rich scent of chicken? This should give you the impression of something. You're going to do the same for number 2 and number 3. I'm also going to include a bonus independent activity. You don't have to do this one, but if you're up for a challenge, go right ahead. For the bonus activity, you're going to read this passage. It's part 1 from a story called A Little Princess. You can actually find the entire book on Raz Kids. What I want you to do is read the passage, like I said, but then you're going to focus on those parts that I've highlighted. Each of those phrases that I've highlighted gives an impression of something. So you'd write out the words that are highlighted and then underneath explain to me what these words give you the impression of. What are they telling you? So the first one says, yellow fog hung so thick and heavy. What does that make you imagine? What does it make you think? Be sure to read the entire passage carefully, otherwise you might not understand what these phrases are trying to tell you. What I've also done is any words that I thought you might not understand, like thoroughfare or queer, I put the meaning next to them in blue. So a thoroughfare is just like a big street, and queer just means strange. One more time for those who might have missed it the first time, this is a bonus activity. Not everyone has to do it. If you find this text too challenging to understand, you are not required to do it. However, if you are up for it, please by all means go right ahead. All right, that's it for today, Year 5. Stay safe and I'll see you soon.